It is the first Sabbath of the month, right? And since, what was it, 2022, January? The first Sabbath of the month, we devote to, and look at that slide, it changed in transition a little bit. But if you read the white print, we focus on what? Thank you. Now I know you can read the slide. Current events through the framework, the lens of Bible prophecy. And specifically, Matthew chapter 24. Now, those of you could probably quote these words, quote these sentences now from Matthew chapter 24, but perhaps there's someone here who is not as familiar with it. So let's just refresh ourselves. Matthew chapter 24, then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. And the implication is, Jesus, look at the temple. This is so impressive. What an impressive structure for the worship of God. And Jesus responds with, do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. Whoa! Jesus, what are you talking about? So the disciples reply, what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Now they had transitioned from the immediate location, the immediate precincts of the temple itself, to the Mount of Olives. And I've had the blessed, wonderful privilege of being in Jerusalem, and where the temple was sitting to the Mount of Olives is not all that far away. Probably less than a mile. But he gathers his disciples there to unpack the future. And it is somewhat cryptic. Take heed that no one deceives you, Jesus continues on. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation will rise against nation, literally, ethnic group against ethnic group, because the biblical word there is ethnos. If we want to get into more of a nationalistic kingdom against kingdom, would be more accurate in thinking terms of like Russia and Ukraine. There will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So since 2022 to now January of 2025, we have returned again and again and again to this passage and extrapolated out to a few others as well. So we find ourselves here at the beginning of 2025. And I invite you to think about what I will share with you, what I believe God has directed and inspired me to say by way of preparation in the framework of uncertainty and certainty. Uncertainty and certainty. What's happening in our world? What's happening in our country? There's a measure of uncertainty. The Economist, the world ahead, 2025, forecasting a year of uncertainty and instability. The American Hartford Gold Group, if you're going to buy gold, brace for uncertainty in 2025. The Armed Conflict Location and Event Data website talks about those areas around the globe to watch by way of conflict and instability in 2025. Of course, Israel and Gaza, Iran and its allies, Myanmar, Mexico, West Africa, Sudan, Ukraine, Colombia, Pakistan. These are some of the hot spots around the globe that are being watched. and likely to experience conflict and instability. And of course, we do not want to leave out The Simpsons. Now you're laughing, but if you are Simpson intelligent, you know that over the years, The Simpsons have made intriguing predictions about the future that have come to be reality. And they've done this years in advance. And it almost kind of makes you wonder, do they have a hotline to something? I don't know. But here are some of the they don't get everything right, but they get a number of things amazingly correct. So, 2025, we're supposed to see the birth of hover cars. And according to the little bit of search on the internet that I've done, they're getting close to that. If you're my age, do you remember the cartoon from back in the 60s, The Jetsons? Some of you do. Another thing for 2025, AI robots take over, mind control through music, hypnotic beats, repetitive lyrics, environmental disaster. Well, duh. Environmental disaster is not too rare these days, is it? So, we could have multiple environmental disasters. Hologram mail. Now, I really didn't know much about this, but investigated a little bit. Hologram mail. Instead of sending a text message, you send a hologram of yourself. Hey, Kathy, can you talk with me at 1:30 today on the phone about the 10 days of prayer? I have a smile on my face as I prepare my hologram to be sent to you. Is that an SMS or is that WhatsApp? I don't know. Pope Francis dies? We'll see. We'll see. So these are predictions about 2025. Now, let's dip back 1 month into December of 2024. Hey, you had to be living under a rock if you didn't hear about the drones, right? Anybody? I won't ask you to raise your hand. We all heard about the drones, didn't we? Aren't you glad you don't live in Jersey? Although we shouldn't be too cocky because who knows what could happen here in Charlotte. So are they drones, meaning a flying robot without a pilot on board? Are they UAPs? I had to look that up. I didn't know what a UAP was. An unidentified anomalous or aerial phenomena. Are they orbs? Simply, they're circular, they're ball-shaped. Are they plasmoids? What is a plasmoid? I didn't know what that was. A coherent structure of plasma and magnetic fields. Or are they all of the above? Isn't it interesting how this was in the news for about a 2-week period, but have you heard anything about that in the last 10 days? It's like it just dropped off. Media's not talking about it anymore. And we have no answers. There was no reasonable, consistent explanation as to what these UAPs are. Don't you find that a little bit strange? Do you think somebody doesn't want it to be talked about anymore? I think the government knows exactly what it is. And for whatever reason, they don't want to say. Do not want to say. Now, I wonder if the drones are some kind of a preparatory thing for something to come in the future that has this is like back to the future with E.T. Is this some type of a preparatory thing that will condition us to putting credibility into some type of an intelligence that's in space that would give a message that would contradict the Bible? I don't know. But I just think it's weird. It's weird. Something else that's weird, not a prediction, but just a recent phenomena, is the fog. Did you hear about the fog? Some have termed it FogVid24, conspiracy theories about the fog across certain states engulf social media, and I think it's also in Great Britain. Conspiracy theories about the fog are picking up steam online as people report strange, thick mist followed by flu-like symptoms. The thickness of the fog, its appearance under a flashlight, and the respiratory symptoms some have reported after exposure led many to theorize about chemical attacks, bioweapons testing, and of course, aliens. Pastor, why are you even mentioning this? Is just sensationalism. I don't know. Was the dark day, May 19, 1780, was that sensationalism? Now, we point in the Adventist community as this being a significant fulfillment of prophecy. And it took place mostly over the northeastern United States. So people in the South here, did they say, oh, those Yankees? Were they Yankees in 1780? I don't think they were quite yet. But those people up north, they're just sensationalizing this. It's on TikTok in 1780. It had to create a certain degree of uncertainty. Why is it dark at 11 o'clock? Now, in the morning. Historians try to connect the dots that there were major forest fires somewhere out in the middle plains of the United States, but I've never read a historical account where there was the smell of smoke in the air. So I don't know. I just don't know. Sensational or real? FogVid, that is. But it creates a certain measure of uncertainty. Well, the word FogVid kind of reminds us of another word that was two-syllable, and it started with a C, COVID, right? And of course, that's in the rearview mirror for us now. But even when COVID was kind of lessening in its spread and its intensity, in October of 2022, there was a conference held known as Catastrophic Contagion. It was hosted by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in partnership with the WHO, World Health Organization, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they conducted this tabletop exercise to meet the future challenges of a future pandemic. So as one pandemic is kind of winding down, let's get prepared and ramp up for the next one. That was the whole idea. So they had a series of exercises simulated to respond to a future pandemic in the near future. And the idea is that this would disproportionately affect children and young people. And there were certain graphics that I found in 2022, early 2023, that I can no longer find on the internet. They're gone. They're just gone. As it talked about the future pandemic. Future at that time, in 2022 and early 2023. But the health organizations, the intelligentsia, is talking about a future pandemic. More recently, just a few months ago, spring of 2024, this headline read, "The next pandemic is coming. Will we be ready?" Officials from 194 countries came together to agree on a global plan to deal with the threat known as Disease X. So we don't have a name for this yet, so we're just going to use X, and we'll fill in the blank later when we're able to identify it. University of Chicago now is featuring online YouTube videos of preparedness steps that they are discussing as the healthcare intelligentsia. It's being talked about in certain circles, not in the media generally. You kind of have to go hunting for this, but These are reputable institutions, reputable academic institutions. John Hopkins has put out a study called the SPARS Pandemic, 2025 to 2028. This is a hypothetical scenario designed to illustrate the public health risk communication challenges that could potentially emerge as a naturally occurring infectious disease outbreak, requiring, keyword there, requiring development and distribution of novel and or investigational drugs, vaccines, therapeutics, and other medical countermeasures. Do you sense there's a direction, there's an agenda here? The infectious pathogen medical countermeasures, characters, news media, excerpts, social media posts, and government agency responses described in this report, because it's not a report, it's a projection, it's 25 to 28, described herein are entirely fictional. But we're going to run through the exercise so that when the real thing happens, we'll know where we're going and how to respond and how to communicate. Now, it's called SPARS. Do you have any guess as to what that refers to? SPARS is a 4-letter acronym. SPARS. St. Paul's Acute Respiratory Syndrome. Let's blame it. Let's connect it to a church, okay? So here's a fictional description. Notice, in mid-October 2025. That's 10 months from now. But we're going to think as though this is happening in October of 2025. 3 deaths were reported among members of the First Baptist Church of St. Paul, Minnesota. 2 of the church members had recently returned from a missionary trip to the Philippines. Where'd you guys go? Stay away from Keith and Kathy today because they could be carrying something. I hope you know that was sarcasm. Had recently returned from a missionary trip to the Philippines where they provided relief to victims of regional floods. The third was a mother of a church member who had also traveled to the Philippines with the church group, but who had only been mildly sick himself. So son comes home, hugs mama, mama picks up the virus, son's okay, which kind of contradicts, disproportionately affecting young people from the prior projection. And mother dies. Now, again, this is entirely fictional, right? They even wrote up a press release, St. Paul Chronicle. This is the newsletter of the St. Paul Baptist Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. And you can see the date by the arrow, October 17, 2025. It's entirely fictional. Oh, 2025. Uncertainty and certainty. Uncertainty and certainty. Reviewing Matthew 24, yes, we have wars and rumors of wars, ethnic groups rising up against each other, kingdom against kingdom, pestilences, earthquakes in various places, tribulation, persecution, lawlessness. All I have to say is New Orleans, and you know exactly what I'm talking about according to current events. Deception, false prophets, false Christs, the love of many growing cold. Does this not give us an input of uncertainty on an ongoing basis? And yet at the same time, here's certainty. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. That's certainty in contrast to uncertainty. For as lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. The Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. That's certainty. And he's going to send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. So I have painted a picture for you in the last few minutes of the context in which we live, and we live in a context of uncertainty, counterbalanced with certainty. Uncertainty with something that we can be certain about. Now, this is not unique to us. In fact, I think that for the most part, maybe there are a few exceptions, probably every generation, every 40 years, every 100 years, there has been this tension, this dynamic of uncertainty with certainty. Just look at a few examples from the Bible. For from Exodus chapter 3, God states to Moses, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, this statement from God to Moses was actually the fulfillment of something that God had said to Abraham some 400 years earlier. Some 400 years earlier, God had told Abraham, "No, certainly, there it is, that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs and will serve them, and they will afflict them for 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward, they shall come out with great possessions." How did they build that sanctuary in the wilderness anyway? Because the Egyptians funded it. They came out with great possessions. So there's a foundation of certainty from Genesis 15 as well as Exodus. Was it chapter 2? Exodus 2? But then on this foundation of certainty, we encounter a lot of uncertainty in those 10 plagues of Egypt, which threw the entire nation of Egypt into instability and turmoil and uncertainty. And there was consequences that came to the Israel community. You remember? Pharaoh said, "I'm not going to give you any more straw for the brick making process. You got to go find your own straw because you guys are lazy. So you got to go out and find your own straw." This did not sit too well, obviously, with the leadership. So they complained to Moses, "May the Lord judge and punish you for making us stink before Pharaoh and his officials." New Living Translation, okay? "You have put a sword into their hands, an excuse to kill us." And so Moses absorbs all that anxiety, and he goes to God, and he cries out to God, "Why have you brought all this trouble on your own people, Lord? I thought you said you were going to come down and deliver them. Why did you send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh as your spokesman, he has been even more brutal to your people, and you have done nothing to rescue them." Uncertainty, right? Uncertainty lives in tension with certainty. It happened in that generation that came out of Egypt. Let's fast forward a few centuries to Jeremiah's day, and we hear another setup of uncertainty and certainty. So Jeremiah tells his generation, "Hear the word of the Lord, all you people of Judah who come through these gates to worship the Lord." This is in the context of the temple. "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Reform your ways and your actions, and I will let you live in this place. Do not trust in deceptive words and say, 'Well, this is the temple of the Lord. This is the temple of the Lord. This is the temple of the Lord. This is 920 North Sharon Amity Road, 28211. God would do nothing to harm this facility, even though we need to fix it." Okay. If you really change your ways, the prophet goes on, as a spokesman for God, then I will let you live in this place and the land I gave your ancestors forever and ever. But look, you are trusting in deceptive words that are worthless. Because in counter-influence to Jeremiah's voice, there were others saying, don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. A few chapters later, Jeremiah repeats in essence what he's already said. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Do not listen to what the prophets are prophesying to you. They fill you with false hopes. They speak visions from their own minds, not from the mouth of the Lord. They keep saying to those who despise me, the Lord says, you will have peace. Chill. Don't worry. Be happy. And to all who follow the stubbornness of their hearts, they say, no harm will come to you. There we have it again. The tension, uncertainty with certainty. Slide jumped around a little bit in translation, but you can make sense of it. There are numerous examples in the Bible of this tension between uncertainty and certainty. Here are some that I know, as Seventh-day Adventist Bible students, you are very familiar with, okay? Daniel chapter 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God, and he brought the articles into the treasure house of his God. This is actually a fulfillment of what Jeremiah had been talking about. Don't depend on those words. This is the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. No, God's going to respond to your decades-old rebellion against him. Talk about uncertainty. This is the setup of uncertainty as Jewish people are exiled to Babylon. Now, we're very familiar with Daniel chapter 2. Talk about uncertainty and certainty. The king has this dream. He can't remember the dream. He doesn't know what it means, but he thinks it's significant. And he lays out this edict. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut into pieces. This was to his front line, his Team A advisors. Daniel was still like in Team B. He was in the farm leagues at this point. But it applied to everybody. And when Daniel and his 3 companions learn of this edict of the king, what? We didn't want to be involved? We didn't even want to be in this class. Can we drop? And you know the story. They have a prayer meeting. God gives Daniel the dream. He gives him the interpretation. That interpretation is then shared with Nebuchadnezzar. And Daniel says, in conclusion, the dream is certain and its interpretation is sure. And Nebi goes, that's right. That's what I saw. Oh, truly your God is a God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret. Instability with stability. The tension is there. Daniel chapter 3. You all know the story of Daniel chapter 3. Bow down to the image when you hear the music play. These guys didn't even go down and adjust their shoelaces. Nebi gives them another opportunity. They don't comply. Hey guys, I'm sorry, but you know, I said what I said, and I mean it. And their reply is, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, we're not going to bow down. They're thrown into the fiery furnace. Now there's a 4th that appears with the 3. And Nebuchadnezzar blurts out, oh my, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That is amazing. I make a decree that any people who speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this. So we go from instability to stability. Daniel chapter 6, you know what's in Daniel chapter 6? Edict given, nobody prays to anybody except the king for 30 days. Daniel says, sorry, can't do that. I'm going to even pray with my doors open. Thrown into the lion's den. Morning comes. Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve, continually been able to deliver you from the lions? O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel to shut the lion's mouth so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. And also, king, P.S., I have done nothing wrong before you. There we find it again. Uncertainty. Intention with certainty. Let's jump to the time of Jesus and kind of a generalized statement that he made for all time from his day forward. Do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a copper coin, and not one of them falls to the ground apart from your Father's will? But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear. Do not fear in the face of uncertainty, for you are of more value than many sparrows. Aligns with what we have read in Daniel, with what we read in Exodus, what we started with in Genesis. As we come to the end of the Bible, the book of Revelation, to the 7 churches, to the church of Smyrna, this message was given. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you, not all of you, some of you. Well, is it me? Or is it him? Is it her? We don't know. The devil is about to throw some of you into prison that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Talk about instability. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Stability. Instability, stability. Uncertainty, certainty. Okay, that's the Bible study. So as I mentioned previously, today we have a number of people who are at a training session in preparation for the Martin Luther King Jr. Parade, 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from tomorrow, the Pathfinders are going to go skiing. Tomorrow, either Sharon and I need to go to the grocery store and get some blueberries, because we're out of blueberries. I had my oil changed in both vehicles in December, but I'll probably need to get my oil changed again in, I don't know, March, April. We have a Renew campaign that's going on. And when's the business meeting? The 11th. This spring, there will be graduations. Some of you have just engaged in major travel. Others of you are planning to engage in major travel. I'm on the calendar to have my teeth cleaned. I think it's in late March or early April. Do you get my drift? Yes, we live in a context of instability. But normal, routine stuff goes on every day. And it was that way for at least a couple of hundred years in Egypt with the children of Israel before Moses showed up. And it was that way in Jeremiah's day until they said, what is that dust in the atmosphere? Oh my, that's the Babylonians. They're actually coming. Returning to Matthew 24, as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Life going on, pretty normal, day to day, week to week, until it happens. And then it's present reality. So why do we come back to this once a month and sometimes even more frequently? We're simply watching and praying and being ready in this ongoing tension between uncertainty and certainty. Now, Seventh-day Adventist Bible students, we know that certain aspects of prophecy which are future are certain because of what has already been fulfilled. And as students of Revelation 13 and 14, we know that there is coming a greater expression of the prophetic beast power, which will seek to dominate conscience and behavior of the whole earthly family. And we know from Revelation 14 that there is a response to this earthly, beastly, coercive, persecuting power. There's a response in the messages of three angels to worship the Creator, to help people understand the chaos and confusion of Babylon, and to give a warning about the ultimate worship test, which has forever outcomes. And that the faithful will endure, they will keep God's commandments and the faith of Jesus. Do we have fresh unfoldings of this dynamic going on? Yes, we do. Maybe some of you are aware that 2025 is a Jubilee year pronounced by the papacy. And in their own documents, they give a decree on the granting of indulgences during the Jubilee year of 2025. Here is an example of a granting of an indulgence. The faithful can obtain the Jubilee indulgence if, individually or in a group, they devoutly visit any Jubilee site and there for a suitable period of time. Would someone define what a suitable period of time is? Is that a 10-minute visit or is that a 10-hour visit? I don't know. For a suitable period of time, engage in Eucharistic adoration and meditation, concluding with our Father. And the profession of faith in any legitimate form, and invocation, I guess the legitimate forms are in the footnotes, and invocations to Mary, the Mother of God, so that in this holy year everyone will come to know the closeness of Mary, the most affectionate of mothers who never abandons her children. And yet we read in the New Testament that there is one God and one mediator between God and men. One mediator, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself a ransom for all. So that's an example of the unfolding of Revelation 13 and the response of Revelation 14. The detraction of the primacy, the supremacy, the solamente, to borrow a Spanish term, the onlyness of Jesus, right? As it relates to grace and forgiveness and acceptance with God. This is an insult to Jesus. So that's one aspect of Revelation 13, speaking blasphemous words. Here's another example, taken from the website Church Pop, which is kind of a culturally attuned website for those in the Catholic community. You can see it's fun, informative, and authentically Catholic news and culture by EWTN, which is the Eternal Word Television Network. So this is on their website. Why avoiding work on Sundays might be more important than you think. Sunday is a holy day. We have to set it apart. We have to make it different. Could mowing the lawn on Sunday be cutting into your spiritual life? Now, you know, I love to play with words, and that's really a great sentence there because of the play. Could mowing the lawn on Sunday be cutting into your spiritual life? We could make a different application. Could cutting the lawn on Sabbath be cutting into your spiritual life? Taking a day off can seem counterintuitive, especially with today's hustle culture. Many feel the tension of our world, and they want to get ahead so badly, and they see Sunday as a day to make more money, to increase the value of their home, to get ahead in the world. However, constantly pushing ourselves without rest can lead to burnout and disconnect us from what really matters, our relationship with the Lord. It's true, right? The principle of that is true. In fact, the third commandment teaches us that setting aside Sunday for worship and rest is an act that aligns us more closely with God's will. We're thanking Him for what He has given us in the previous 6 days, and we are trusting that what He is going to provide for us in the next 7 days. Notice how artfully that skips over the seventh day. It can feel risky, but trusting God enough to rest brings us a real sense of peace and renewed faith. We have to have that faith. We have to seek that faith. And Sunday is such a great opportunity to do that. Rest is not a luxury, but actually a necessity for a healthy soul. Honoring the Lord's Day is an amazing way to deepen your relationship with God and leads to unexpected blessings. Sunday is a holy day. We have to set it apart. We have to make it different. Just try it, Mikey. You'll like it. You'll be blown away by how generous God can be. Now, the principle of that is actually authentic. I don't know. In the Garden of Eden, with Cain and Abel, God said, bring a sacrifice. Bring a lamb. And Cain said, you know what? I'm going to modify that. I just want to do what I want to do. How'd that work out for you, Cain? Not too good. So, this is from Church Pop. Strangely enough, in England, Great Britain, there's a movement called Let's Keep Sunday Special. It is a campaign to retain the existing Sunday trading regulations by limiting them. So I guess it's okay to have a minimal defined hours in which businesses can be open, but we don't want them to be open all day long. So we want to limit them. So we want to keep Sunday special. The Evangelical Alliance and the Church of England have partnered with a number of trade unions and retail alliances to keep Sunday special in society throughout the United Kingdom. Retailers and labor unions have supported the church's efforts to establish Sunday as the day of rest for society. So, do we have certainty about prophecy that has been fulfilled? That leads us to have certainty about prophecy that is fulfilling and will continue to be fulfilled. Worship the Creator. Help people understand the chaos and confusion of Babylon. Align with the primacy of worship, keeping the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. and live in the tension of uncertainty with certainty. Because I got to get blueberries tomorrow. And if I want to drive my car another 100,000 miles, I need to change the oil. And here's the big appeal for this week. Engage with 10 days of prayer. Engage with 10 days of prayer. Because it has the potential to transform the platform and the trajectory, not just for 10 days, but for your entire 2025. I don't want to sound morbid, but somebody in our congregation this year could likely die. Just as Wayne Godwin, who hadn't been here for a number of years because of ongoing physical challenges, he breathed his last Saturday night. Somebody here has the potential to be in some type of a major car accident that is going to inflict significant injuries upon you. Or you know of someone at a distance who's in your relational network. That's why it's vital to monitor the uncertainty, but to focus on the certainty. And here's a parting word from Jesus. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, family, let's read it together. I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And though the Apostle Paul was not present on the occasion in which Jesus voiced these words, I think he knew them well. Because at the end of his life, as he was anticipating the end of his earthly life, he wrote to Timothy, "The time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day. And not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing." That's certainty. Certainty.